Yeah, it was a very bombastic presentation by the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, obviously giving that impression of strength to anyone watching. Some of the key takeaways is that to be completed in under a week, the US and Israeli Air Force plans to have complete control over Iranian skies. It will be uncontested airspace, as he described it. He said that what has happened so far is twice the air power of the shock and awe of Iraq, 7 times the intensity of the 12-day war. That's when US and Israeli strikes hit Iran's nuclear facilities. We've got more bombers and fighters arriving today, said Pete Hegseth, and they're moving towards GPS and laser-guided precision bombers rather than the blanket airstrikes that we've been seeing. So they're moving to a different posture. This more GPS precision guided strikes, they have Pete Hegseth said an unlimited stockpile. So currently they're going from large deliberate strikes, as the Joint Chiefs of Staff said, to these more precision strikes. And Pete Hegseth essentially said that we can sustain this fight for easily for as long as we need to, saying that America is winning decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy.
Now, Jagroti, is there any indication we will be seeing boots on the ground in Iran?
I think that this is a question that was put to the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, and he said that this was a policy decision. He only executes policy. I think Donald Trump has not ruled out boots on the ground, but Pete Hegseth in that press conference was making a lot of the fact that this was not a nation-building exercise, that they managed to do what they did in Iraq, but without the nation-building exercise, and that they're planning to continue this operation as a bombing campaign. Now, a lot of experts watching this are saying that if your stated goal is regime change, it's very difficult to affect that with a bombing campaign alone, because you have limited influence on the ground. And so, Donald Trump and the Trump administration has repeatedly said they do not want to see the US embroiled in a lengthy war in a foreign land. But here we are seeing experts worrying that this particular campaign, whilst we're looking at days and weeks from the Trump administration, that this could result in an escalation that sees the US embroiled for a longer period, even though it states that it does not want to do so.
So the US is telling some of its staff and embassies to leave the Gulf countries now. What details do we have about that?
Yes, so we have Pakistan's government recalling non-essential, the embassy in Pakistan recalling non-essential government employees there. We've got non-essential employees and their families being asked to leave the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iraq, and Jordan. This is following Iranian drone strikes on the US embassy in Riyadh that caused a fire. You've seen a drone attack on a fuel tanker in Oman. And so Iranian strikes in the Gulf are causing concerns, and the US embassies in many of these Gulf countries are saying to their non-essential workers to leave with their families. Although there are questions about how much support the US is able to provide Americans. The US embassy in Israel, for example, has said that there's limited support that they can give any Americans there, and are asking them to go into Egypt, where commercial flights are still operating, and to try to get a commercial flight out of Egypt.
Now, Jagroti, how much support is there from general public for this military operation in the United States? Do you see that the public is in favor of the current conflict?
So there have been several polls that have been conducted in the wake of the US airstrikes, and most of them are showing that the majority of Americans are not supportive or are worried to various extents about the US airstrikes. So let me just give you some details from some of the polls. An Ipsos Reuters polls just said just 1 in 4 Americans back the US strikes. The Washington Post did a flash poll where they texted just over 1,000 people, and that showed that 52% of Americans oppose Donald Trump ordering the airstrikes on Iran, as opposed to 39% who are in favor of that. Americans, interestingly, are split evenly, almost down the middle, let's say, as to whether these actions are going to result in a long-term involvement of, it will or will not contribute to the long-term security of the military strikes. 49% think that it will contribute to the long-term security. 51% of Americans think it won't contribute to long-term security. So it's an interesting stat there about the split about whether these strikes will make America safer or not in the long term. The majority of people surveyed by CNN said that they think that a long-term military conflict between the US and Iran is likely. These views are largely, in general, split along party lines, with Republicans generally being supportive, Democrats being generally very critical.